Today we're doing my magical readathon Orilium Spring Semester 2026 TBR. G at Book Roast just put up her countdown to the 2026 Spring Semester announcement video for Magical Readathon, and so it is time for me to start prepping to plan my TBR. If you don't know what Orilium is, it is a unique and original magical school story where we in the readathon are students. We choose which house we want to be in and we choose which calling we want to take. A calling is a little bit like your course or your subject that you'll be studying. Each spring and autumn, your calling determines how many classes you have to sit, and for each class there is a prompt. You read that book to pass the class, and you have to pass all of your classes to progress to the next year in your calling. In autumn it's a little bit more complicated because there are grades to each of those classes and you do end up reading a lot more books, but spring's relatively simple, and although it always sounds like a really complicated readathon, there are loads of videos, the Discord is fantastic, and I promise it actually, once you get into it, makes so much sense. It's really easy to follow. Technically we're only meant to have one calling per character, but that's not who I am. And my character, I've decided she's ambitious, okay? She's ambitious, she's driven, she's aiming high in her academic career. Now, so far in all the years I've done Orilium, my character has been, let's just say she's been productive, but she's maybe not been focused. She's been flighty, and she's tended to pick a different calling every year. But this year I've decided that I have three callings. I have three callings that I think actually work together to create like what I would see as like her career path. Technically it's not in the rules, but it's also not in the rules, and there are little adjustments you can make. So she's going to be doing her major in Aldean excavation, which is a little bit like an archaeologist for magical creatures in this world. Then she's going to be studying necromancy so she can raise them from the dead, and beastmaster so she can take care of them once they're risen. Because I'm doing all three callings, the rule for that, if you're going to break the only do one calling rule, is that if a subject comes up under both callings, so say I have to do divination for necromancer and I have to do divination for beastmaster, then I can't just use the same book for those two prompts. I have to treat them as separate prompts, and I have to read a book for each one. That means that in theory for spring I have to read 17 books, and we're not even going to talk about what that means for autumn yet. However, in the past couple of years that I've been playing the game, we have been able to earn points in various ways, and these points can be used then to buy your character upgrades. So they can be things like magical objects for their rooms, decorative items, or scrolls. The scrolls then give you perks and bonuses using one book for two prompts, starting a book early or finishing a book late, switching a prompt that doesn't work for you. And I've basically hoarded all my points. I've really not used them. I'm the person that plays video games and holds all the potions until I've died and then regrets it. But this semester then I plan to use some of those stockpile points and try and be as efficient as possible so that I can achieve all three of the callings. So I have a spreadsheet that I created for myself. It's going to help me track from year to year what stage I'm at in each of the callings, and it's going to help me figure out how many points I have, how many I've used, which scrolls I'm using for each book, and which books I'm reading for each subject. I know what I'm doing, or at least I can tell myself that I know what I'm doing. I do have a couple of books that I would like to fit on the TBR if I can. I talked about them in more detail in my general April TBR and my old school April plans video. That one I'm going to link down below, but basically I have 3 potential buddy reads and one book that I kind of want to read because it's being adapted, but it's about 900 pages, so it's really only going to work if I can make it fit a lot of those scroll choices. So we're gonna see how that works. G's video goes up tonight, so I will no doubt sit frantically with a notebook and I will get back to you in the morning with what I'm gonna be reading. So I watched G's video last night and I spent a good hour or two with my notebook, my Goodreads TBR, running through all of the random choice selection things we had to do and talking to some of my friends and some other booktubers on Discord and Instagram. And I think I have a TBR that's going to work for me. I don't think I'm going to be able to double up on as many books as I thought I would. Books I have just don't really fit more than one prompt at a time. But what I am going to make use of the scrolls for is to switch prompts occasionally. One, this means that some of those trickier prompts I maybe only have to find one book that fits, and then I'll switch the other duplicates for something fresh. And then also it means it's going to give me a bit more variety, because I did find that with the 3 callings I've picked, they overlap on a few subjects, and that meant I had like 3 of one prompt or 2 of another prompt, and I would like a little bit more variety if I can do that. So I'm gonna load up my spreadsheet and we will talk through it as I add things in and change things up. So you can see here I've got my Excavationist, Beastmaster and Necromancer, and in 2025 I did Excavationist and Necromancer, so I have Novice in both of those. I'll be going for Novice in Beastmaster this year and Apprentice in the other 2. Here are my points that I carried over into 2026. I've done the 3 Adventures of Aldia books in January, February and March. I won't be doing the April book, but that gives me 30 points. And my totals here, and we're gonna see what I need to spend on scrolls. Here are the scrolls. The ones I'm planning on using the most will probably be the Scroll of Exchange. I know I could swap in books in their entirety with the Scroll of Replacement, but I feel if I do that too much, it kind of takes away the spirit of following any of the Aldian prompts. So that's in my back pocket, but I'm gonna try and use the Exchange Scroll the most. I would have liked to use the Versatility Scroll, to use that count a 500 plus book for 2 prompts, but I have plenty of 500 plus books on this list, which is horrific, but none of them really would fit 2 prompts, so I think we're mostly going to be using that Exchange Scroll. Excavationist is what I'm counting as like my main topic. That's the one that I really, if I have to make changes throughout the month and I have to prioritise things, these are the books that I'm going to prioritise, because that's the one I see as my kind of major. It also helps out a little bit that it is the one with the fewest prompts, so it's the one I should be able to achieve no matter what chaos happens throughout the month. The first subject that I need for Aldian Excavationist is lore, and this is where I realised that I might have shot myself in the foot right at the beginning, because the prompt is to read a dystopian or utopian, and I don't even know that I have a single utopia book on my TBR. I don't even know what that would look like. I know I don't read a lot of dystopian, so my choices were quite limited. However, I have been seeing To Cage a Wild Bird by Brooke doing the rounds recently, and it seems to be getting a lot of hype, but also the people that have read it seem to have really enjoyed it. I think it's very fast paced. From what I understand, this is a dystopian setting, possibly inside a prison and maybe with a competition aspect to it. So I think this one could be fun. It should hopefully read quite quickly and get me off to a really good start. So To Cage a Wild Bird is going into my first lore space, and we'll be coming back to that prompt later. Then the next one I have to read is Restoration. The next prompt I have to read is Restoration, and the prompt for this is to get a friend to give you 5 books that they considered 5-star, and then you have to pick one from there. So I did ask a couple of people over in a Discord server I'm in, and they happened to overlap on one book in particular, so that seems like the obvious choice. I've been meaning to read A Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick for at least a couple of years now. It has been on big readathons TBRs consistently, but because it has quite a high page count, I've heard it is quite an intense book, maybe a little bit slow going. I've kept putting it off, but this is clearly the moment. So it's another chunky book, but Mask of Mirrors, the first in the Rose and Rook series, is going to be my restoration pick. This is a political fantasy about a con artist who is trying to trick her way into a wealthy noble family so that she can provide for herself and her sister. It sounds like there's going to be lots of aristocratic courtly backstabbing and kind of wheeling and dealing going on here. It sounds like exactly the kind of political fantasy that I really love. Then for conjuration, I have to do a social media scroll, and it's not the first book that you see, it's the first book that appeals to you. So I used Instagram for this, and the first book that I came across in the scroll was The Honeys by Ryan Sala. This is one that I bought last year in the lead up to spooky season and never got around to, but it's the perfect time for it now. This is about a gender fluid protagonist who is exploring their sister's death at a summer camp. It's obviously going to have some mystery elements to it, which really appealed to me, but I think it's also venturing down a slightly more horror road. Then the last prompt that I need for the Aldean Excavationist is animal studies, and for this one we have to read something to do with either a wolf on the cover, wolf in the title, or wolf in the kind of content of the book. The one that I'm going to pick for this is Moonstone by Purcell. This is a gothic romantasy with some paranormal elements. I think we're maybe going to be doing werewolves. I've read books from Laura Purcell before, her first 3 books I think, and I really enjoyed them, but then the books she put out after that I was less interested in, so this might get me back into this author, which would be really good. You can see that it has a wolf right down on the bottom of the cover, plus I think from the description I'm fairly confident wolves are going to be part of the content as well. Now if I get those 4 books read, technically I have completed the main calling, my real true calling, but I would also like to read some more than that. So the next calling that I am looking at is Beastmaster. This one has 5 prompts and there are already going to be some overlaps, but obviously we need to pick different books for them. The first prompt is Elemental Studies, and for that we have to read a book that has a temperature word in the title. I saw a lot of people struggling with this one, and I would have too, except A Dark Cold Touch has been on my TBR for ages. I love the cover. It does a kind of fake old-fashioned gothic romance thriller cover, and I think it sounds really fun. I really enjoy those over-dramatic old 70s and 80s gothic romances, and if this goes down that road, but maybe modernised slightly in terms of writing style, then it's going to really work for me. All I know about it is that it is a gothic romance, and from the cover I'm assuming it's going to be set at some kind of gothic manor house, which is absolutely perfect for me. I'm also thinking that I can probably use this to fill one of the Buzzwordathon cover prompts that comes later in the year, because I'm not super bothered about doing them in order, where one of the prompts is to use a cover that's design makes it look like there's damage, and this one has a kind of crinkly, worn, battered effect on it. Then we have another animal studies book, so again something with wolf somewhere in it, and for this one I'm going to pick After the Fall by Edward Ashton. This has been on my most anticipated books for, I think it was February since I heard about it. It is a dystopian setting with a kind of buddy cop type of dynamic between a human and the alien who keeps him as a pet, because in this dystopian world humans are kept a little bit like pets, and I think he finds out that his owner has sold him to pay off a gambling debt, and now the two of them have to figure out a way out, I think. It sounds really good. This is by the same author as The Fourth Consort, which I really fancy, and Mickey 7, which had a movie come out last year. This cover is absolutely stunning. I really like it. I think it's the American cover, and I don't think the British cover looks the same, so I'm probably just going to get this one as an ebook. So the next prompt that I have to pick up is Alchemy. The book that I've picked for this is Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. Alexis Hall is an absolute auto-buy author for me, and I've actually read Boyfriend Material a couple of times already. It's a fake dating, opposites attract contemporary, and I really enjoy it. It's really funny. It's got a very British sense of humour. The third book in the trilogy is coming out in June, so I'm planning to reread Boyfriend Material in April, Husband Material in May, and then Father Material, the new one, in June. Then for Restoration, we are going back to that 5 stars from a friend prompt, and I decided to change that one up a bit so I wasn't just reusing the same thing, and instead I've changed this prompt to the prompt that comes from Art of Illusion, and this is to read a book with unusual formatting. So we're going to take a Scroll of Exchange and put that there. And then the book that I've decided to go with for this one is The Examiner by Janice Hallett. Janice Hallett's books are always written in unusual formatting. They're mixed media, so you have text message chains, you have sometimes transcripts or email attachments. I've really enjoyed all of the books I've read from her. I think I've given all 3 of them. I want to say I've read 3. I've given them 4 or 5 stars. There are a couple of books from her backlist that are still outstanding, I've still not read, The Twyford Code and The Examiner. I do think I was more interested in reading The Twyford Code, but The Examiner obviously has a school academic setting, and that just feels far more fitting for Orilium. This is one though where I am keeping my options open, and I have an alternate prompt ready if I start to flounder towards the end of the month, if it really doesn't look like I'm going to get all these books in. I also have a copy of the History Boys play that I could read. It's a script and it's, I think, under 100 pages, so that would be a much faster read, so I might slot that in if I struggle. But from what I remember, Janice Hallett's books, even if they're on the chunkier side, do read fairly quickly, so this is one that I'm gonna aim to get to, and we'll see if I have to change it later. Then the last prompt is lore again, so this is the dystopian prompt, and what I plan on doing for this is using a scroll of scholarly exchange, which lets you combine 2 prompts into one book so long as the book fits both prompts. And what I'm going to do here is use my scroll with After the Fall. I already said that that is a dystopian. It's set after humanity has been conquered or enslaved, so that'll fit both those, and that takes one of the books that I need to read off the list, which is quite useful and well worth the 35 points or whatever it costs. Then we come down into my third and final calling. I know, and this one is for Necromancer, which I think is one of the biggest callings, so we'll see how this goes in autumn. If anything goes by the wayside, it would most likely be this one, but we're gonna see how it goes, we're gonna try it. The first prompt is shapeshifting, and you had to flip a coin, and you were either gonna read a book that was under 400 pages or over 400 pages. My coin toss gave me under 400 pages. Honestly, I wouldn't have minded what came out of that, because I definitely have some bigger books that I still need to put onto the TBR this month, so it doesn't really matter either way. But the book that I've picked for it is Paladin's Grace by T. Kingfisher. This is the first book in her Saints of Steel quartet, which is also part of her wider World of the White Rat universe. I'll be rereading this one this month with Faye at Books and Chocoholic and her Discord group. This follows a group of kind of sworn soldiers to a god who has died. So when the god died, the paladins all went a bit berserk and homicidal, and their number has greatly diminished. They are now kind of trauma bonded together and just trying to survive, just trying to keep going with this kind of dead god lurking in their heads. The books are, I would say, the romantasy adventure mysteries. In this one we're following Stephen, and Grace, the woman he falls for, is a perfumer who I think is accused of treason, and the two of them have to obviously uncover a kind of political conspiracy to prove her innocence. Then we are back to another animal studies, and I did not know I had this many books with wolves, I really didn't, but I have found one that fits. It has a wolf on the cover. It is the second book in Lily Mayne's Goliaths of Wrestling series. This is called Clean Finish. I've not read the first one, I've not read any of the other books in the series, I've not read any other books from this author, but I have been told by people whose opinions on books I trust that this is quite a fun contemporary romance. I don't know why it's a wolf. I assume it's paranormal of some sort, but been told that the kind of grumpy sunshine dynamic in this romance will really appeal to me, and that I don't need to read the first book to do so. So that's the one I'm going to put down here. Then the prompt for spells is to read a book that comes from a bestseller list. And again, I'll try and put somewhere on the screen. The bestseller list I looked up was, well, I'm going to be honest, I did look up a couple and I had absolutely no luck finding anything I wanted. But then I looked up Blackwell's, I'm sure it's Blackwell's, and they had When the Moon Hatched by Sarah Parker. This is one that I'm planning on buddy reading this month anyway. It's about 700 pages, so I really wanted it to get somewhere on this list and not be an additional book. And luckily I did spot it on the Blackwell's bestseller page. Then we came back to Conjuration and a social media pick, and again I went through Instagram. I've screenshotted it for you because my Instagram currently is full of Oscars and whatever photo shoot the Heated Rivalry guys just did. That's the two things that's all that's on my feed at the moment. So it took me a really long time, but I found Everyone in This Bank is a Thief by Benjamin Stevenson. This is the third or fourth book in his I think it's called the Ernest Cunningham series, and it starts with everyone in my family has killed someone. I've really enjoyed these mysteries. This is my most anticipated book of April because I think this one in the UK had a slightly later release date than it did in the US, so it's just came out. It is waiting for me at my library. I'm second on the list, so hopefully whoever has it first reads it quickly and gets it back to me before the end of April. But if they don't, we'll have to rethink things. But this is going to go on my Conjuration space. Then we have lore once again, and another dystopian. This time I decided to use a scroll. I cannot read another dystopian this month, so I'm going to switch it with astronomy, which I don't have anywhere else. And the prompt is to read a top shelf book, so either at the top of your TBR or physically the top shelf that you have. So here we have, this is the top row of my bookcases. It's a bit messy, obviously, but you can see that mostly it is Terry Pratchett books that are up there. So I'm going to be picking Sourcery, which is, oh there, this one up here. I've been hoping to continue my rereads of the Wizards subseries this year. So the next book that I would have on that list would be Wizards 3, which I'm not sure what it is in the greater series, but the third Wizards book is Sourcery. So that's the one that I'm going to put on here using a scroll of exchange. Then for demonology, the prompt is to read a book with a house on the cover. Now, the one that I picked for this you would have heard about in, again, my TBR game video. I have a book that I would like to read purely because it is getting a new adaptation out on TV at the moment, and I would really like to watch the adaptation, but my brain won't let me watch the adaptation and then read the book. I need to do it the other way around. So this is A Woman of Substance. That is a 900 page women's fiction book, which is so not my thing, but I really want to watch the adaptation. So what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to use one of the scrolls. My real plan for this was that it would fit multiple prompts, and then I wouldn't feel like it was 900 pages for one prompt. It would be like 900 pages for 3, but it just doesn't work that way with the other prompts. So what I'm going to use is a scroll of continuity, which lets you start the book early. When I finish my current audiobook this month, I will start listening to this book probably and get an extra week or so in, and hopefully that'll really help. It also means if I end up deciding after 10 hours that this book is not for me, then I can come back in at the start of April, pick a new book, because I have so many books on I have loads of books on my TBR that would fit a building a home on the cover. Loads and loads and loads of them, especially kind of gothic-y books that I love. So if I give this a fair shot at the very end of March and absolutely hate it, then I can switch the book and I'll get my points back for the scroll and we'll just kind of continue from there. But my goal is to use this scroll and to read A Woman of Substance by Barbara Taylor Bradford. Okay, so we are on the home stretch. There are 2 prompts left. The next one is Inscription, and the prompt for that was to read a book with a day of the week in the title. This was not for me. The only book I had on my TBR that would have fitted this prompt is actually one that it's really highly anticipated. The Redemption Centre is closed on Sundays, but it's not out till May, and I don't have an arc of it. So the only other thing I could think of was, I know there is a middle grade series that starts with Tuesdays in the Castle. I did read that first one, but I read it a really long time ago. I really don't remember anything about it. I don't care enough, I don't think, to read the second one. So instead I am just going to completely switch this prompt. I'm actually going to reuse that astronomy prompt that was to read a top shelf book, but I'm going to interpret it the other way. So whereas for the lore switch I said top shelf and it's the top shelf of my bookshelf, the other way we could interpret it is the top of your TBR. I have a book club book, the Cozy Mystery Book Club, that is run by Angela Hart. Again, I'll link it below. She picks a mystery book, a cozy mystery, every month, and I only read along when I'm interested in the mystery, and then there's a live show where she calls in authors or other, usually bookstagrammers, to discuss the book. This month's one does really interest me. I've had the physical copy in one of the boxes on my bookshelves for a long time now, but I'm really excited to read it as a group. So it is at the top of my TBR because there's an actual reason that I have to read it this month. So the book that I'm gonna put here is Murder by the Book by Lauren Elliot. This is, as I said, it's cozy mystery set in a bookshop. It will also let me work on my own bingo board that I created, my cozy mystery bingo, which again, linked below. Then the final prompt, we're finally there, is Restoration once again. This is the 5-star prediction. Again, I decided to go with a subject that I'm not sitting otherwise, and so I'm changing this one to the Artificery prompt, which is to roll a die and then you have to read a book that is that number in the series. So if you rolled a 1, you read the first book in a series. If you rolled a 6, you read the 6th. I did a die roll that I'll put somewhere on the screen, and I got 3, which is actually not bad. The book that I have picked for this is the 3rd book in the Game Changers series by Rachel Reid. I read Game Changers and Heated Rivalry in February, maybe. So the next book is Tough Guy. I think this was on my TBR for literature. So actually, yeah, I must have read them in January, because then this was on my February TBR for literature and I just didn't get around to it. But with all the other really big books, this would probably be a good choice. From what I remember, Heated Rivalry and Game Changers were big, but they read really quickly. So I'm hoping the same will happen with Tough Guy. So there we have it. I think in total that is... So there we have it. That is not bad. I think I used 6 scrolls, which honestly points wise is going to be well worth it. And it's not too bad a TBR. There are some real challenging books on there. Women of Substance is, I think, going to be the most intimidating book I have on it. And it would be an intimidating book in any month because it's nearly 1,000 pages and it's not a genre I typically read or enjoy, but I'm just really intrigued. So my goal, like I said, is to maybe start it this month using that kind of continuity scroll so that I can at least decide if I think it's worth persevering with. If it's not, that's an easy prompt to switch for something else. But that I'm going to tackle as an audiobook because I could not find a physical book anywhere that didn't cost me money. Like the library, Kindle, nothing, nowhere had it. So I used my Everand credit because a long audiobook feels like I'm getting the most for my money there. So that's an audiobook. I think I already have, from the last time I said I would read it, Mask of Mirrors on Audible. I think I used a credit years ago for that, so that'll be an audiobook too. And then I think most of the others are going to be physical books, which is really, really unusual for me. Some of these are ebooks, there's a couple. The Examiner and Everyone in This Bank, I have library requests in. If something happens to delay those requests, then I do have options that I can switch those with, so it's fine. But by and large, I think I'm reading my own physical books this month, which is a really good thing. It's unusual for me though, and I'll need to see what the weather's like, because April tends to be where it clears up here a little bit. I like to go out and walk, which means I need more audiobooks, so I might change things. But I think it looks like a good batch and I'm really excited. There's nothing on here that I don't want to read. I would rather there were maybe slightly smaller or slightly less, or being able to double up, but there's nothing that I would choose to knock off the list, assuming I have enough time to read it all. If I was really struggling, there is the swap a book entirely scroll, which would let me put some smaller reads on if I need to. But honestly, I as long as I get through A Woman of Substance and Mask of Mirrors and When the Moon Hatched, as long as I get through all of them, I don't think it's that challenging. We'll see. If you are interested in seeing how I get on with these books over the course of the month, I will be doing various vlogs. Please subscribe to the channel if you're interested in seeing those when they come out. Let me know if you're doing Magical Readathon, which house are you in? Which calling are you doing? Are you into those advanced callings? Have you been doing it for long enough to have graduated? Or are you still playing in the lower level like me? Let me know all of that, and let me know if you're interested in any of the books on this TBR, and I really hope that I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.